Yes.
Say my own don't come back now.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and start so that we maximize the time we have. The hopefully before the next week's sessions, they would sort out your meeting links so that we don't have to face these challenges. Okay, can you see my screen, please? Somebody should confirm they can see my screen so that I can just.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can
can.
see.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I can see.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so I was talking about numbers. So let's say I have a variable that is asking or checking if Ola is a boy or a girl. So let's say the variable is is boy, right? Then so is boy is like a question, right? But you can't add question mark. So is boy. And then I want to use a Boolean value. So I can either say true. So if I'm saying true, it means that, so this is a Boolean, right? It means that this is a boy. And we can actually check the type of this variable. Basically, there's something in JavaScript called type of operator. So we can say is boy dot type of type of yeah, this type of, yeah. So uh I think I should be putting the is boy here. Is boy inside the function. So if I log this, I should get the type of that variable. So let me run this and see. Type of is not defined. Okay, so let me assign this to, no, it shouldn't even be, does it need to be defined? Okay, so let me assign it to a variable first and see. So let's say let type. Could not find name type of. Type. Give me a moment, please. Let me be sure. Type of JavaScript. We should. Okay. I was typing it the wrong way. So yeah, I was typing it the wrong way. So yeah, this is a type of, yeah. Let me see the usage again. Sorry. Okay. So so one thing you need to know about programming is that you don't necessarily have to know everything off from your head. So it's not that I don't want to use the word it's not that deep. Eric said when somebody is using a word is not that deep, then person is not listening. So but yeah, so let's say type of is boy, right? What is it? I'm trying to let me log this. So So type of is boy. So if I run this again, okay, awesome. So you can see the type is Boolean. So basically, his boy is Boolean. He has a data type of Boolean. So you can still call this command on strings. If I put this in quotes now, it becomes a string. It changes from Boolean to string. And if I run this command again, it's going to tell me that this is a string, right? Same thing, if I change it to number, maybe 34, and then I run it again, it's going to tell me it is. So this type of is also is like it's a keyword in JavaScript used to basically check what type of data type a particular value or something is, right? So let's go back to Boolean. We're talking about Boolean. So if I change this to false, it's still a Boolean, right? So, and then if I console log, let me remove the type of now and console log this. If I console log this, it's going to tell me that this is false. So his boy is false. The same thing, if I change the value to true, it's going to say his boy is true. So it's basically used when you can use Boolean, maybe when you're having some when you're doing some operations and you need some what's it called now? Maybe you have some conditional statements or some conditions to check for before a particular action would perform. So you can basically use these things, the Boolean this thing to check. So if this is true, then do this. If this is true, then do this. We're going to also come to that. I think that should be in our next class, not this class. So yeah, let's continue. The next one is undefined. So in JavaScript, we have undefined. So for instance, if I declare this variable and I don't assign it any value, currently, let me just log this and see what it gives us. Undefined. So what does this mean? It means that this particular variable does not have a value. So basically, JavaScript understands this as a data type that is undefined. And this is basically returned when you don't have any value, or when it's not returning any value, basically. But it's something like it's not, it currently does not have a value, but it might actually have a value in the future, but currently it doesn't have a value, so it returns undefined. And then there are some operations that you might perform that basically returns undefined for you, right? Then there is also null. Null. So null are also data types that are given. So some people intentionally write code and then they just give it a value of null, right? And in some cases, maybe there's a field that basically does not it doesn't, they don't want, I'm trying to like paint a scenario where some people use null to assign null to some things, but null means nothing, right? It means nothing, but so you can basically create a variable and then assign it to null, right? So it means it is nothing, or for now it is null, until maybe you now have a value that you want to now assign it to. Maybe you can now change it, or basically you want it to be returning null. You want it to be returning nothing, or just like you saying, they are saying, maybe they ask you a question and you don't have an answer to it. You can just write nil, or yeah, nil. Some people write nil, right? To answer that question because you don't have an answer to it. So null is also a data type. And there are also some things some operations too that actually returns null, right? Because they don't have a response, like a value to return, right? So if I console log is boy now, it's going to tell me that it's null. The value is null, basically, because I've given it a null value. So these are all primitive data types, right? And they are value typed, right? So they are passed by value, basically. And if you can see, most of these operations. I create variable, assign it to something, and all of that. And then I perform. They are basically, we are basically talking to these values, right? But we have the non-primitive data types, which are reference typed, right? So this means that they can actually be referenced, right? You can decide to perform operations on them based on reference, based on the reference. So for instance, let's start with the objects, which let me start with an array. I think that's the easier one to start with. So I'll start with an array. So an array is like a container that contains group of items or group of elements, right? These, like I was when I was explaining variable yesterday, I included two boxes. One box was boys, the other box was girls. So it's just, and I explained that it's just like you saying these. So the first box, which is boys, contains names of boys, right? And then the variable that is holding or storing that names of boys is boys. That's the variable. Now, that box is an array because it's not holding one thing, it is holding several things, although it can still hold a single thing, meaning that you can have an array that only has one item inside of it, right? So let's see that so let's use our boys array. So for example, I have a variable called boys, and then I'm going to create an array. So in JavaScript, when you see anything in this kind of bracket, or you see anything like this, just know that this is an array. But at this point, this is an empty array. And if I console log this, it's going to print this for me as an empty array. Sorry, boys, right? If I log this, you will see an empty array. So it means that this is empty for now. So, but it recognizes this as an array. And if I'm going to say type of, if I call that type of operator on this particular voice and I run it, it's going to still tell me that, okay, this is currently an object. Why? Why? Okay. So hold on, let me do Isaac. Let me do, and then Gabriel. Paul. Okay, still sees it as an object, but this is a string array. Okay. I need to look more into why it's calling it an object, but I know that um sometimes in programming, let me not say what I'm not very sure of. So let me leave that for now. I'll find out why this operator is returning this as an object, but this is currently an array. So this is an array of strings, right? So when I hover on this, it's saying that variable boys, it has a value of string array. So what this means is I have an array containing strings, right? If I create another variable here, let's say let age. So the age of these guys now is say one is 34, the other one is 25, 24, and this other one is 50, 25. Okay. So now this is also another array, and this is an array of numbers. So if I hover on age, you will see that it's saying this is age is an array of numbers, right? So this is an array of numbers, this is an array of strings, right? So an array is basically a container containing a group of items or it could contain a single item, but it has to be in this particular bracket, this four corner bracket, right? For you to know that this is an array, basically. Now, um, you could also have a mixture of items in the array, not just like it's not restricted to having only maybe an array that have only numbers. So you can have an array that have plenty things, right? You can even have an array that has an object inside of it, right? And they are all elements. So these will be seen as individual elements in the array. Now let's talk about why it is called, it is reference type. Let me leave this, let me leave it let me bring it back to a simple array for now. So let's come to why these things are reference types. It is reference types because if you want to access an element in an array, you're going to be accessing it based on the reference. So based on the position of the array. So an array is index based. So if I want to take an item from this array, I have to first try to go into this array, and then I'm going to be accessing it based on the index of that array. And so what do I mean by index? It means that if I want to call Isaac, or if I want to get Isaac, I'm going to start say, okay, I want this array of boys, the element at position so number. And for arrays, the position basically starts from 0. So Isaac is actually currently at position 0. Gabriel is in position 1. And that is the index, right? So first of all, let me remove this type of that is confusing us for now. So if I log this, I'm going to get the full array. But what if I want to now call Paul, for instance? So what it means is that I'm going to say boys, which is the name of the array, or the title of the array, or the label, whatever it is you want to call it, but this is the variable. And then I'm going to put in the array symbol. And then I'm going to put in the index of Isaac. And like I said, array index starts from 0. So it starts counting from 0. It doesn't start from 1. So I'm going to pass. Paul, can somebody tell me what Paul will now be? What's the position of Paul? If I want to get Paul.
Paul will be 2.
2.
Awesome. So Paul will be number 2. And if I console log this, I should get Paul. All right. So this is Paul. It is logging Paul for me. So let's say, for instance, I want to make a sentence and I'm saying the guy who came first position is, and then I put in the whatever. I don't want to hard code Paul because it could be anything. It could be anybody anyways. It could be anybody at that point. So let's say, for instance, we have maybe in a classroom, and then the person who came first is in a certain position. Maybe we don't even know the name of the person, right? So I can do this, and then when you log this, you're going to get this sentence, and then it will print the Paul for us. So Paul. Same thing, if you want to get the first one, you put index 0 here, and then it will get you whatever it is that you want to get for you. So even if you have an object here, or you have a number here, once you are able to access it with the index, so this should be index 2, 3. If I say index 3, I'm going to get that empty object there at the end here, right? If I put index 4, I'm going to get 20, right? So these are some things you can do with an array. Now, I don't know, these are some of this is how to actually access the item in an array, right? That's a single item if you want to access a single item. But in some cases, you might want to access each item in the array and then do something with each of them or perform an operation on each of them, right? And that's where you get things like loops and all of that, but we'll get to that. So let me not overload us with information. So for now, let's stick with accessing the items in the array individually or elements in the array. You can call them elements, can call them items or whatever you choose. But these things, so this array can be array of anything. It can be array of fruits, right? So let's say, hold on. Let me see something. Something just came to mind. I want to confirm. What we see now. Okay. So you can have array of maybe fruits. Let's fruits. Yeah. Mango, orange, pineapple, pawpaw. I don't know names of fruit again. Okay, so yeah. So these are fruits, right? And this is an array of fruits, and you can basically do anything on them, right? So arrays also have different.
Sorry, Mary.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those fruits that I wrote, are they not supposed to be in strings?
Are they not supposed to be?
Like written in strings.
They are.
I can see you're using just one, like.
Okay, so like I said before, in JavaScript, you can either use single quotes or double quotes, any of them. So if I wasn't using any quote at all, right, it will even flag it. Do you understand? You will already be seeing error. Can you see that? You will already be seeing errors. Do you understand? Or something. So if you're writing a string in JavaScript, you can use a single quote or a double quote. Whichever one you use specifies a string. The only thing is, if for instance, maybe, let's say for instance, I'm printing out, I want to print a string, right? And then inside that string, I want to put a quote. So maybe I'm writing a paragraph and then there's a quote inside that paragraph. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So maybe somebody quoted something and I want to quote what the person says. So it means that if I'm using a double quote in the beginning, which is specifying the string, if I want to quote that person, don't use double string. But we know that for you to quote somebody means it's double string. So because I know I want to quote somebody inside that my sentence, I have to just use a single string in the beginning or even string literal. There's something we call string literal, which is this backtick on your laptop. You can also use it. But that is used majorly maybe when you want to do some string like maybe when you want to do concatenation, right? Concatenation is what I've done this here. It's just like you joining a string and maybe a variable or a function or something. So that's what we call concatenation in JavaScript. I did it before and I didn't want to like bug us with plenty information at the time. That's why I didn't go about explaining, but Yeah. So for instance, I want to say Joy said that, and then I want to quote what Joy said, right? But if I don't, this way, Joy said that he's a guy, right? Now, in this case, everything will work fine, right? You know, I'm quoting this. But if, for instance, I now come and put double quotes here, there's going to be an issue. And you can see it already, right? Because I'm using double quotes here. I'm also using, I'm using double. So this quote here will come and see this one as the partner. This one here will not even look at this one that is here. So they will be looking at themselves that something is missing, right? And then it will throw an error. So, but if I know that I want to do this, then I'm going to use a single quote. Then it's still a string. It's still considered a string, right? Or I'm going to use my string literal, which is the backtick. Yeah. And then it still works fine. So you can use any of these things to actually specify a string in JavaScript. But some languages are quite strict. So for Java, if you use a single string, you can't use a single quote for a string in Java. It will flag it. But you can use a single quote for a character. That's a single character like A or B or C or D, just one single character. Because in Java, there's a data type called cha, that's character, which is a single character. So if you're writing a string in Java, it has to be in double quote. Java is kind of strict like that, but JavaScript is not. So, and that's why you can basically use any kind of quotes in JavaScript, whether a single quote, double quote, or even your string literal. That's your backtick in Java. I hope I answered in JavaScript, sorry. I hope I answered your question.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, so yeah, that is it. Then so now that it came to mind, in case the class ends again, please let's just join with the same link again. But I'm hoping that it doesn't end before. So yeah, so this is an array. So an array have a couple of operations that you can actually carry out on arrays, right? In fact, there's a lot of things you can do with array. And as you progress with your journey in programming or in writing code, you come across lots and lots of things that you would actually be doing. You will be basically be doing array manipulation, object manipulation, because most of the things that you're going to actually be working with, maybe you're writing test or you either have to maybe meet something that is an array and then you have to like perform functions on them or operations on them or do something on them or manipulate them somehow, or mostly object arrays. So they are things that you would actually meet a lot in the course of doing this. Obviously strings, because when you want to write, you would have, you meet up with strings a lot, numbers, all of that. But then these other ones are more like a little bit more complex. That's objects, arrays, functions. So the non-primitive data types, right? Functions too, basically, because everything that you're going to be writing, or most things that you're going to be writing, would probably be in a function. It could be a test function. It could be, in fact, when you start writing tests, you find out that, for example, for Playwright, test is a function of in Playwright. And then that whatever test you're writing will have to be inside that function. Or so you have to like try to get to understand these things for you to be able to, because you're going to be meeting them in the course of writing tests, automated testing, and whatever. So yes, let's go back to array methods. So it is called array methods, right? Let me even go to this so that we can see a couple of methods in array. Let's see. So we have array methods, right? So we have a couple of them, right? We have array length to string, array at, join, pop, push, shift. So these are different methods that you can actually perform on arrays, right? And they will do, depending on what you want to do, depending on what you want to achieve, right? You can see what works for you. So I'm going to be demonstrating a few of them, right? And then we can move on to the next thing. So let me start with array.length. So for instance, I want to know the, so can you tell us how many, can somebody unmute and tell me how many items we have in fruits array?
4.
4, right?
Three.
We have three.
Three. 0, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so yes, I know why I asked that question. I asked the question because I know that initially I said that array is
4.
based. Yeah. And yes, you're right. The items in this array is actually 4, right? But then, so the length of the array is 4, meaning we have 4 items in them. But when you want to reference them, or when you want to get them, you have to start from point 0. It doesn't mean that when you now want to count the length of the array, you will start from 0, right? So let's call the array.length method. That method basically returns the length of the array, basically returns the total number of items in that array. So if we say fruits.length, right? And then I console log it. Let me put it here. And then I run this code. Length is not a function. Hold on. Fruits.length. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So it's not a function, it's a method. Okay. So when I run this, you can see that it actually logged the length for me. So it says it is 4. Fruits is 4. If I say boys dot length, it should give me 3. No, 5 actually. So it gave me 5. So please, let's not be confused with the index of the array and the length of the array. The length of the array is the total number of items in the array, right? But when we talk about, so the index is the position of each element in the array, right? The position of each element, just like saying, let's say for instance, I used to give this example now. So let's say for instance, I'm trying to like think of a real world scenario that I want to use to give. So let's say we have people in a car, and we know, a car that has 4 seats, right? And then there are 4 people in the car, but we are saying that the car is an array now. And then we have the car array, and then we have 4 people seated inside of it. So somebody now says, you start, okay, before you enter the car, take a number, right? Take a number, and then somebody says, take a number starting from 0. One person takes 0, the other person takes 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then these 4 people enters the car. Now, the fact that they have a number, an identifier, which is a number starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, does not change the fact that we have 4 people in that car. I don't know if that makes sense.
5 people in the car.
Sorry?
We have 5 people in the car.
5.
Yes, since we are starting from 0.
No, I said, let's say we have 5 we said people take a number, right? And then 1, 2, take a number starting from 0, right? And then somebody takes 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And 4. Okay, yeah, we have 5 people in the car. So let's even say, okay, the car is 5-seater car, right? It carries 5 people. So when we want to start counting number, we're going to still end at number 4, right? But it still did not change the fact that we have 5 people in the car. Does that make sense? We have 5 people in the car, but when people start writing their number, we will stop at 4. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Like when the people start putting out their identity, for example, like the identity that we have given them. So that 0, 1, 2, 3 is like their identity, their identifier, right? Their ID, basically. So the fact that my ID is 0 or another person's ID is 0 and another person's ID is 4, you cannot say, okay, because of that, we have 4 people in the car. No, it doesn't change the fact that there are still 5, right? So the length of the array is different from the index of the array. I don't know if that makes sense. So, but yeah, we can already see that in place. So if you call the length method on the array, it logs the total length for you. Do you understand? So, but when you want to start accessing the item in the array, you have to start from index 0. If you put 1, you will not get, if you want to get mango and you go and say, get me number 1, it will get you orange. If you want to get pineapple and you say, get me number 3, it will get you pawpaw. Right? Because in the world of arrays, their index or their identity starts from 0. Right? So yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so well done. So in a case where we have mango, orange, pineapple, and purple, if I
Okay.
want to get the array of the first 3, how do I do that? Like first 3 in the list, or perhaps the last 4.
If you want to get
Is
the
that possible? The first 3. So I want to see what is in 1 and 2, or I want to see something in 0 and 1.
in 0
0
and
to 3. Yes, the first 3.
the
Yes, the
first,
first 3
yes,
inside
you
this
can,
list. Yeah.
yeah, you can basically do that. You can basically do that. So you can say you want to get index 0, right? And then, so let's say for instance, so it means you're going to, for now, I don't want to go into loops. So you can just basically log your 1 to 2, 1 to 3, Abby. So this will basically log the first 3 items for you, right? If I run this, it's going to log, oh, sorry, I was calling boys. So this is fruits. But if you want to using that with 1 line of code, you are going to basically loop through these arrays and then log the index, right? But I don't want to rush us to that point. So when we get to that point, you also see that in play without having to
All
like,
right.
you don't even need to hard code it like this. You can just use index like I or something, and then it will basically loop through the arrays and then get, if you want to get the first 3 or the last one. So there's also a method called last index, array method called last index that will basically get you the last item in the array. I think that should be mentioned here. It is not. Okay, so we can basically, let me try to. So this would basically log the first 3 items for you, right? So let's say fruits dot last index of, yeah. Yeah. So this takes in the value to locate in the array. So it takes in what